Good morning, everyone. And I want to say a very big thank you for this opportunity for hosting me, making it available that I'm on your platform to share a bit. So, a very, very big thank you. Thank you for your passion. We see what you're doing with the Tadif. You see what you're doing with the young generation. We see your. Sometimes I question myself, what is actually driving you? What is actually driving you? So, thank you very much. So where Pastor Ken stopped is going to be a good takeoff for me because I've been saddled with the responsibility to talk on how to master academic and study skills, right? So many of us were in campus, we're still in school, or maybe we are graduates, we are interns. So it's very, very key that you master the skill set of studying, you make it a habit. So Pastor Ken said something that really got me. Pastor Ken said characters are cultivated. They are cultivated. Characters are cultivated. You don't just build them overnight. You painstakingly take out time to build your character. So they are cultivated. So that's where I'm going to be starting from. So I'm going to be talking about, my section is going to be in three different parts. So first of all, I'm going to be talking on how to build an effective study routine. That's the first one. Then we're going to go to how to take good notes. Then the ground of it will be how to master knowledge retention. So that's going to be the peak of it, right? So I want to start with a story. I'll start with a story, then we'll find landing somewhere. Okay, so we hear a lot of people say school na scam, school na scam. Actually, school is not a scam, right? Some people say school is not a guaranteed ticket. It's not a guaranteed ticket to success. That's true. But on the other hand, school is one of the sure tickets to succeed in life. It's one of the short ticket, proven short ticket to succeed in life. Yes, it's not a guarantee to succeed in life, but it's one of the short tickets to guarantee to succeed in life. So most of the times I do tell people, while you're in school, on one hand, you come out with your certificate and with a good grade. I tell people, try as much as possible to get a first class. If you're not able to hit the first class limit, then you should just fall at 2-1. That is a second class upper, a very good 2-1. Then on the other hand, you have a skill set or an intellectual skill set or a technical skill set. So when you go to the labor market, you're going with two hands aggressively. You're going with two hands aggressively. Okay, so you see, there's this country I learned about lately, South Korea. It's going to be fascinating to know that in 1950, South Korea was one of the poorest countries in the world. One of the poorest countries in the world. So in 1950, South Korea had this civil war, an internal war that happened, and the thing devastated economy, infrastructures went down, different policies crashed. So this war lasted for 3 years, from 1950 to 1953. So the war ended at 1953, right? And when this war ended, a new government came on board. A new government came on board. And when this new government came on board, there were some certain things this new government put in place, some certain key structural reformers this government put in place. And number one of them, you go and check, you see education. The government invested so much on education, especially science and technology, science and engineering. It invested so much, massively, pumped a whole lot of funds there. So you see, so much attention was on academics, so much attention was on knowledge, driving innovations. And it will shock you to know that one of the poorest countries as of 1950 to 1953, today they are global economy. And why? Because the government went and focused so much attention on the educational sector, on the academics, building minds. And I can tell you today, you see Samsung, some top global tech innovation companies are from South Korea. Samsung, Hyundai, you see, they are leading the global economy today because the government channeled resources, attention to this field. So I can tell you that school is not a scam. School no be scam. School no be scam at all. All right. So, like I said initially, my sections are going to be in three parts. So the first one, we're going to be talking on how to build an effective, robust study routine, something that works. So I'm going to be sharing with you principles. Everything I'm going to be teaching you here are principles because I've been a student, and these are one of the principles that helped me a lot succeed in my academics. At some point in university, that was, I think, 300 level. I was so deliberate about getting a very good result, a very good grade, that at some point, 300 level first semester, when the result came out, I was the only one in my whole department, marine engineering. Some of my colleagues are here, so they can attest to what I'm saying. 300 level first semester, I had the best result in my department. It was so bad because the kind of courses we were being exposed to at that point in time were courses we've never seen before. So I was the only one that had above 4.0 in 300 level first semester. So some of the things I did, how I was able to navigate that path, that's what I'm going to share with you today. So I'm going to be sharing with you principles, just basic principles, because one thing about principles are universal. So you use this principle in USA, in any country you find yourself, the same result this principle delivered to this person in Nigeria would deliver the same result in US, would deliver the same result in South Africa, would deliver the same result anywhere in the world. So principles are universal, right? So I'm going to be talking about the principle of consistency over intensity. Consistency over intensity. Remember, the subtopic here now is how to build a robust, effective study routine. So we're looking at the principle of consistency over intensity. So if you put consistency on this hand and intensity on the other hand, any day, anytime, consistency will outperform intensity. Any day, anytime, it will outperform intensity. It will knock intensity out. Right? So consistency builds habits. Remember, Pastor Ken said, characters are cultivated. So that's what consistency would deliver. Consistency builds habits. It builds discipline. Consistency delivers long-term results. While intensity, on the other hand, delivers short-term results. Most times, people engage intensity for example, you have a project, you have deadlines. So some people go intensify, they do intensive reading just to meet up with that deadline. But any day, anytime, consistency will beat intensity. So I want you to see intensity as like a spark of light. A spark of light will not cook food. It doesn't cook. But intensity is that steady flame. Intensity is that steady flame. It keeps on burning. It's that steady flame. Right? I'm not saying intensity, on the other hand, is not good. There are times, occasionally, you need intensity. If you want to upscale, you want to crack you want to move to a particular dimension, intensity is okay. But consistency consistency will always deliver. It will deliver long-term results. It will deliver long-term results. So when you want to go into deep learning and mastery of any field in life, when you want to go into deep learning and mastery of any field in life, you need to subscribe to the program of consistency. Consistency. Consistency will deliver mastery and deep learning. But if you want to just stay on the shadow, on the norms where everybody operates, you can keep doing intensity. But consistency will deliver mastery. When you want to crack a different level, you want to become a principal, a major in a particular field of endeavor, you have to subscribe to the program of consistency, right? So you see, there's some certain action points that consistency will lead you to. Consistency will lead you to some certain action points. And all the action points consistency will lead you to is, number one, it will help you set regular study time. That's what consistency does. It will help you set regular study time. Now, what is this regular study time all about? Setting a regular study time is just allocating or dedicating a particular time boundary in a day or running through a week that you're going to come up, that you're going to show up to read. So it will help you set a regular study time, a regular study time. Now, when I say it helps you set a regular study time, it's not just limited to only certain time boundaries. No. You also set targets that, okay, in this limited number of hours in a day, running through the week, these are my short-term goals I have to meet. Because it's not enough for you to just set time. It's not enough. Because you can actually show up every day and at the end of the week, you see that you don't gain anything. At the end of the week, you just see that you don't gain nothing. So you set consistent time boundaries with short-term goals, targets that you want to meet in that time interval you set aside. So at the end of the week, you come and take a review this regular study time that you've set aside to see if, okay, was I able to hit my target? What were the possible distractions I got? How can I make things better? Now, when you set your regular study time, there are some points in time whereby you see students, okay, you've set 2 to 3 hours every day to read. Now you can show up there and you waste your time. So there are some techniques that you can use to increase your attention span, your focus span. Because I came to understand that students are smarter than what they think they are. Students are really smart. Most of our problem is that we lack this focus span. We lack attention span. Many of us don't know how to stay through a conversation for minutes. Many of us, we don't know how to do that. We go to our place of reading, our place of study, and while you're reading, something distracts your mind. Your brain just strays. Sometimes you experience brain burnout. Sometimes your brain sleeps, right? So there are some certain things you can do during this time that you've set aside to read every day. One of them are what we call the Pomodoro's technique. What does the Pomodoro's technique talk about? It's just you trying to focus on one task at a time for at least 25 to 30 minutes. You have this laser focus. You're focused on something because you have a target now to meet. So you're focused on it for about 30 minutes, 25 to 30 minutes. Then at the end of every 30 minutes, you take maybe a 10 minutes or 5 minutes break. So now, one of the breaks, when you take this break, you can actually get hydrated because it helps the brain. You get hydrated, you can look outside of a window, you can stretch, you can even take a nap, a 5 minute nap, a 10 minute nap. It will help your brain to rejuvenate, right? So most students suffer what we call poor attention span. They lack good focus span. They lack good focus span. You find it very hard to stay true to a discussion. You find it hard to read, to stay true to maybe a study period, to just set your focus on something, set your gaze on something. Most times you get distracted, and it's not your fault because there are a lot of information the brain is speaking. There are lots of signals your brain is speaking. So you're bombarding your brain with a lot of signals. So it's very possible that you might get burnout and you lose focus. So one of the effective way to make sure that you get the best, you get the most out of this your study period is by engaging what we call the Pomodoro's effect. So out of every 25 to 30 minutes of intense focus, laser focus on studying, you take a 10 minutes or 5 minutes break, try to look outside, try to stretch your body, try to sleep, try to get dehydrated, drink water, a lot of water. Then you come back. So you see that this is now a chain of reaction. After 10 minutes of intense study, after 30 minutes of intense study, I do 10 minutes of break. You come again, 30 minutes of intense study, you do another 10 minutes of break. And you see, it's really now becomes interesting. Really now becomes interesting. So another action point that consistency will lead you to, aside from setting a regular study time, you need to be sure it's now your duty, is your responsibility to make sure that you create a noise-free, a distraction-free environment. So first of all, it starts with self-discovery. You need to discover your strengths. You need to discover your weaknesses. Discovering your strengths in the terms that everybody are not night people. For example, me, I'm more active in the night. I'm most active in the night. I get work done in the night because in the night you have less distraction, less errands, so you're just fixed at one place. So you discover yourself. Are you most active in the night? Are you most active in the day? So that will now help you, guide you in setting this regular time. So when you do that, you make sure that you also set a distraction-free environment where you can focus. A distraction-free environment where you can focus, right? So you see, consistency, like I said initially, it will deliver a long-term result. Undoubtedly, it will deliver a long-term result. You want to become a principal, a major in any field, you need to subscribe to the program of consistency, right? So you need to develop an effective study routine. That's the first thing. That's the first step. The first step. So now the second step will now lead you to what we call, that's the second section of my second section. So we've talked about developing a robust, effective study routine. Then the next is you have to now know how to take good notes, quality notes. You should know how to take good and quality notes, right? So when you're taking good and quality notes, there's a method they call Cornell's method. It's actually called Cornell's method. You may not really necessarily get yourself familiar with the name, just know what it's all about. So what Cornell's method means is you take a page of what you're reading and you divide this page into clues, you summarize it, so divide this page into key points, divide every page into notes, you summarize it into key points, into clues. So now the second thing you do when you're engaging Cornell's method is what we call making use of mind gaps. Sometimes you could use diagrams, clues to create connections. So you use mind gaps, use diagrams, use clues. For example, when I was still in secondary school, in physics, there's something they teach us, it's called optics. When you're doing optics, you see, your teacher will tell you that when a ray of white light, a beam of white light passes through a glass prism, diffraction occurs. So this ray of white light that you feel that is just white in a single line, once it hits a glass prism, diffraction occurs. So this white light is separated into different number of colors. So instead of you to now go and start cramming that, okay, This, after diffraction occurs, the ray of light is now divided into red, orange, yellow, blue, indigo, violet, and the rest. So you use codes. So we now call it Rooiberg. Because many times the questions will ask us, okay, after a ray of white light passes through a rectangular glass beam, what are the colors diffracted? So instead of you to start cramming everything, you now get them in codes. So those are what we call mind gaps, using your understanding, right? Diagrams, codes to create connections, right? Okay, so after that, so I've dealt with study, creating an effective, robust study routine. So you see, what creating routine does is it helps you build habits. Routine helps studying easy. It's no longer a stress. It's now a habit. It's no longer a stress. That's what routine does, right? So we've talked about routines. We've talked about creating good notes. Then lastly is what we call how to master retention, knowledge retention. So you've read, you've created a robust study routine, you've taken good notes. Now, these things that you've learned, how do you recall them? How do you recall them? Because it's not good enough for you to just read. How do you make good use of what you've read? How do you recall them? That's how you can get an effective, you can become efficient. So you see, when it comes to retaining what you've read, there are three processes the brain goes through during knowledge retention. So the first thing your brain does is encoding. It encodes, then it stores before it retrieves. So now you see the reason why you need to pay attention here, because it's your brain that does this, right? And you're not in charge of that organ. So you need to know how to, it's just like there are some organs in the body that there are some certain foods you eat that enhances its performance. So that's the reason why you need to know how your brain does this thing. You need to know the process. You need to know the dynamics behind this active recall, behind knowledge retention. You need to know how. Like I said, you're not in charge of your brain. Just for example, if you're a biology student, something they call CNS, central nervous system. So there's a part of the brain that does the voluntary actions. There's another one called the spinal cord that does the involuntary actions and the reflex actions and the rest, right? So the part of the brain that is in charge of this retention, knowledge retention, is the cerebrum. So you don't need to know how the cerebrum works for you to know how to utilize its effect, its performance. So you see, knowledge is for function, knowledge is for performance. How knowledgeable you are in a particular area, in a particular field of endeavor, area of concentration, determines how you perform, determines your function. Knowledge is for performance. So now, I said the brain retains information, it retains knowledge, all these things you've read, you've taken pain, time, you've cultivated that habit, that character of studying, you've taken notes, quality notes. How do you now utilize knowledge retention? So I said, first of all, the brain encodes. What's encoding? Visualize, imagine yourself as a programmer, whether you're using JavaScript or Python or C++ or machine learning, whichever one. Now, what you do is you're sending inputs to the system. So maybe you're using a VS Code. So you're sending inputs, you're sending instructions using the keyboard on your system, right? Now, the VS Code arranges these codes in lines of codes. Then there's a particular icon you click on live, it gives you a response. It gives you a response of the initial codes you've provided. So it's your duty now to provide this input, to provide this information. So that's what encoding does. So that's the first place, encoding. You provide inputs, you provide informations. So encoding is just what you see, what you hear, and what you read. That's what encoding is all about. So you see, in the process of encoding, what your brain does is your brain does not understand, for example, now, what Pastor Ken just taught us on now. Like, for example, one that he said, habits are cultivated, characters are cultivated. Your brain does not understand this word, characters are cultivated, but you've had it. So this thing you had now is in form of audio signals. So there are receptors in your different sense organs that picks these things. So you're getting this audio signal, which is what you had. Envision your brain as a library, a physical library. So when a lorry supplies a library, maybe loads of books. So that's how your brain picks a lot of information, a lot of signals every day. Your brain picks a lot of signals every day. So that's how the lorry supplies this library, this loads of book. So what the librarians do is, first of all, they compress this. They are too bulky. They are scattered everywhere. The one based on engineering is here. The one based on psychology is here. The one based on human anatomy is here. The one based on sociology is here. So what the librarians do is, first of all, they try and compress them. They gather them together. Then after gathering them, they find connections between them. After connecting, so they now create what they call catalog. So in library and information science, there's something they call classification and cataloging, right? So catalogs, the ideal thing for you to do when you go to a library is, first of all, go to the catalog and check to see if the book you want to look up is in the catalog. That's the ideal thing to do when you go to a library. They have catalogs pasted on the shelves. So you go to the catalog and check if, oh, this is the book I need. Is it in their catalog before you now go to the different classifications of the book? So that's how your brain does. The loads of information signals it's getting, it tries to classify them into different semantic registers, right? So you need to know that your brain has the ability to process 34 gigabytes of information every day. 34 gigabytes of information every day. That's what your brain does. It processes 34 gigabytes. But now the sad news is, if it processes this 34, it does not store the whole 34. It processes 34, but it does not store the whole 34. So your brain at every point in time is trying to trash some information because there are loads, there are too much. As you're seeing, you're picking different signals. You move towards this direction, you're picking another signal. You're looking towards this direction, you're picking another visual signal. You're hearing things. So your brain is now loaded with things to process. So it has the ability to process 34 gigabytes of information every day, but it does not store the 34. So now the question is, what can you do to make sure that the one your brain fits important, deem important, it stores it? Because as it's getting the signals, it's trashing. It's the ones that it now feel that, okay, this is relevant, this is important. That's the one it now moves to the registry, right? When it comes to storage, your brain has 3 different memories it stores things. So the first memory it stores things is what we call the sensory memories. The sensory memories, it has the working memories and the long-term memories. So now, the sensory memory, sometimes I call it the super fast memories. Because signals it picks from your sense organ, either through hearing, through seeing, or what you read, they are lost. Just like the picture of a face, the smell, the odor, these are stored in sensory memories. They are super fast. They are lost in split seconds. Right? Now, the next one is the working memories. The working memories are short-term memories. They are fast memories. They also go maximum in 5 minutes, 10 minutes. Why they call them working memories are, just for example, these are memories that, for example, you need a code, just like some of us that use fintech apps, and you've activated this 2-factor authentication on your phone. So, you go to your Google Authenticator and go and pick the code, this 6-digit code. You recall that this 6-digit code, your brain has the ability to just remember it for a limited amount of time. If I ask you what are the 6-digit code that you just got from your Google Authenticator, maybe in the next 20 minutes, you will not be able to tell me. That's why they call them working memories. Your brain don't have that capacity. That memory does not have that capacity to store things for a long time. Now, the last one is the long-term memory. Why did I take out time to explain this thing for you? It's because, I said the first one is the sensory memories. You can trick your brain to migrate things from your sensory memory and store them in your long-term memory. You can. So how do you do this? Remember I said your brain is trying to trash out different information at every point in time, trying to trash out, but it only keeps the one that is important. How does your brain know the one that is important? It's only when you build a certain level of relevance around that particular thing, around that particular information. That's the only time your brain moves, it migrates this information now to long-term memory. So any memory, any information that is not consolidated. So information storage is done by consolidation, by the process of consolidation. Any information that you don't consolidate will be lost. Any information you don't reinforce will be lost. Any information you don't consolidate, you don't reinforce, will be lost. And sometimes it's very painful because there are sometimes that I hear something and I want this thing to stay with me. But because the moment I just became so excited that, I just picked something, but I don't now add meaning. I don't give meaning to this thing. I don't pay attention to this thing. I don't consolidate that thing. In the next 2 days, 3 days, I'll be trying so hard to remember what this guy said that struck me, but it will be so painful that I cannot remember it again. I will try so hard to remember. I will think, the thing is not coming, it has gone. Why? Because I did not consolidate that memory. Because there was no reinforcement done. Memory storage is done through the process of consolidation. Reinforcement, and repetition. Right? So this is how to master knowledge retention. You want to be able to recall anything at any point in time that you've learned, or you've read, or you've seen, or you've meditated on. You have to engage the process of consolidation, repetition, or reinforcement. So basically, that's how to master knowledge retention. I remember I said knowledge is for function. Knowledge determines your performance. How knowledgeable you are in a particular area of enterprise, in a particular area of concentration, determines how you perform. You want to become a top performer in maybe your school, in campus, in career, wherever you find yourself. You have to gain knowledge on that thing. You have to gain knowledge on it, right? So knowledge is for performance. Title, I'll come with the webinar, Launchpad. Some people might want to use the word springboard. So what this is meant to do is meant to launch you to a new level, a next level, right? So we are saying it's from campus to career. So you should not be stranded when you leave school. So before you even leave school, you need to even be planning on what next, right? You need to be planning on what next. Just like what Pastor Ken shared to us. Pastor Ken said you need to develop, you need to deliberately get strategic relationship. For example, now I graduated last year. I'm here to do a youth service. But before my youth service, I was able to float a company. Last week, I even registered. I moved the name of the company from a business to a normal limited liability company. So the information I got in floating this company were friends I was able to meet in the school when I was still in campus. And that was helping me where I am today. So I advise students, when you're in school, on one hand, be pursuing your certificate. Do as much as you can. Graduate with a first class. If you can't, then a 2-1, best minimum a 2-1. On the other hand, have a skill, either it could be a technical school skill or an intellectual skill or whatsoever, so that when you come out of the university, you will not be stranded. At least you can now start putting a little bit, 1 or 2 things you can start, and from there you find purpose. You find purpose. The truth there is that without expectation, nobody meets purpose. If you're not hungry for something, you won't meet purpose. So thank you very much, Ma. I really appreciate.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Please let's appreciate